WN Las Vegas, the dawn of today's talk radio.
KDWN News Time, 9 o'clock. For 20 years, Brian A. Lowe and Associates have helped Las Vegas locals protect against foreclosure and file Chapter 7 and 13 bankruptcy. If you're in trouble, call 259-0002. Good morning. I'm John Schaefer with this hour's top stories. Suspected Las Vegas strip shooter Amar Harris has been extradited back to Nevada. He was booked into the Clark County Detention Center this morning. He's accused of shooting Kenneth Cherry Jr. on February 21st. That caused Cherry to crash his Maserati into a taxi, which caused it to explode. That killed both people inside. Harris was arrested in California a week after that shooting and crash. He was being held there until he could be extradited to Nevada. President Obama has ordered flags at the White House and all government buildings to be flown at half-staff in honor of the Boston Marathon explosion victims. The president signed a proclamation making the order today, calling it a mark of respect for the victims of the senseless acts of violence perpetrated in Boston yesterday. He ordered flags to remain lowered through sunset Saturday. The morning after, some survivors of the Boston bombings are recounting the horror of that explosion that killed 3 and injured more than 150.
We were probably about 10 feet from the finish line.
That's when Leanne Yanni felt the first explosion.
It was quite loud.
Yanni spoke to NBC's Today Show this morning from a hospital bed.
I have a open fibular fracture, and I'm waiting to get a skin graft.
Her husband Nick sat alongside with a pierced eardrum, remembering the chaos.
There was a lot of bad things going on, and everybody was just trying to help everybody.
I'm Sagar Meghani.
The release of an immigration bill has been delayed because of the Boston Marathon tragedy.
The long-awaited sweeping immigration bill was to be formally introduced by a group of 8 lawmakers today. But a press event with activists, business leaders, and religious groups was delayed until later in the week after the deadly bombings in Boston. Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer and Republican Senator John McCain reportedly plan to meet with President Obama today to discuss the legislation. Immigration reform is a top second-term priority for the president. Sandy Kozel, Washington.
Clark County commissioners are preparing to appoint a replacement for expelled Nevada Assemblyman Stephen Brooks. Board members will meet today to choose a replacement from among 9 applicants. Assembly leaders are recommending commissioners choose between Melly Pulido and Tyrone Thompson. On Wall Street, the Dow's up 126 points. News brought to you by Jack in the Box. Right now, you can get 2 Junior Jacks for only $2 plus tax. This deal is only available for a limited time, so come in today and get it while it lasts. It's 9:02. Here's Mitch Kelly with the latest from the KDON 1 Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center.
This report brought to you by 99 Cents Only Stores. Did you know that 99 Cents Only Stores offers fresh produce with an amazing selection of fresh vegetables and fruits? Start eating healthier and save money at the same time. You don't have to be wealthy to eat healthy. Save more and shop 99 Cents Only Stores first. Couple of minor wrecks along 95 southbound, one on the connector to 15 south, the other at Eastern, both on the right shoulder, neither causing delay. Do have a new injury accident, though, northbound airport connector right at the tunnel, causing a little bit of problems through there. South injury accident, Bermuda north of St. Rose Parkway, east side wreck Sahara west of Nellis, west side crashes Lake Mead at Decatur, Tropicana at Decatur, Buffalo at Spring Mountain, also Charleston at Rancho, one in the northwest as well, Cheyenne at Rancho. From the KDON 1 Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center, I'm Mitch Kelly on News Talk 720 KDWN.
The KDWN forecast, mostly sunny, 66 the high today. Partly cloudy, 50 overnight, then mostly sunny, 67 for Wednesday. Right now, partly cloudy, breezy, 57 in Las Vegas. Your next update at 9:30 or when news breaks. And we're always streaming online at KDWN.com. Brought to you by Brian A. Lowe and Associates. I'm John Schaefer, News Talk 720 KDWN.
Have you still not refinanced your mortgage? Well, soon you might be kicking yourself in the head. I've never seen rates this low since I started Westland Financial over 10 years ago. But I can assure you this, that the rates will be going up soon. So don't delay. Let us lower your monthly payment, consolidate a first and second, pay off other debt, or drop you into a 15-year loan with no closing costs. That's right, nothing's rolled into your loan. We'll pay for your appraisal, title, underwriting, settlement fee, everything. Do not miss out on this historic opportunity. Whether to purchase or refinance, you'll pay no closing costs. You won't spend a dime. Think about it. All it takes is a 5-minute phone call to find out how we can save you hundreds or even thousands of dollars a year. You can't afford to be giving money away, so call us at 888-945-4145. The only way you can lose money is not to call Westland Financial. We make loans you can live with for a long time. That's 888-945-4145. 888-945-4145.
Licensed by the Department of Corporation CRMLA, NMLS number 3304. Not all loans apply. Equal housing lender.
KDWN is now available in more places than ever. Streaming live at KDWN.com, on your iPhone or Android with the iRadio Now app, and the TuneIn app available on any smartphone or tablet. Tune in with music, sports, news, and comedy from over 70,000 stations around the world, including KDWN. Get more info at TuneIn.com or KDWN.com. News Talk 720 KDWN, where locals come to talk. The broadcast of information on this show does not create an attorney-client relationship with any of the listeners. Communication between the listener and the hosts of this show will not be confidential. The information provided on this show is prepared for a general audience without investigation into the facts of each particular case and is not to be considered legal advice. The information provided on this show should not be used as a substitute for legal advice. The listener is advised to consult with a qualified attorney on any legal issue they may have. It's time for News Talk 720 KDWN's Legal Hour. Have a legal question? Call now 257-KDWN. That's 257-5396.
KDWN News Time is 9:06. Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the KDWN Legal Hour with attorney Airene Williamson from the Williamson Law Office right here in Las Vegas. Good morning, Airene.
Good morning, John. It's great to be here on a Tuesday again for one of our business segments.
And there is a lot to cover.
There's a lot to cover,
law.
Yes.
It's not a simple cut and dry subject, is it?
It never is in any legal issues, really. The answer to all legal questions when I was in law school is it depends.
Oh, that works.
That's why we're here. You know, and before this show, actually, they were talking about immigration, so I think I'm going to touch on that next week. But today, it's going to be business, setting up your business, running your business. So if you have any questions on that, collections or business disputes, call my office, 702-823-3311, or email me at info@wlawoffice.com.
And if you have a question you want answered right here this morning, you can give Airene a call right here in the studio at 257-5396. Well, Airene, should I start a small business?
You know, there's a lot of considerations.
There's an easy question for you.
There's an easy question, yes, and there's really no right or wrong answer. Last week, we did touch on the legal issues concerning setting up business. But I think one of the most important part of setting up a business is practical considerations. And in fact, I am an attorney, but people ask me all the time, should I start a small business? As if I have an answer to that. I mean, that's a personal decision for everyone. And for me, who is a business owner, that's actually one of the hardest things I have to decide is whether I want to start my own business. It's definitely risk involved, and that's a big change for somebody who's employed and now setting up your own business. And the answer to that is it depends on what kind of commitment you're willing to do. The time, obviously, you know, when I started my business, I have this naive idea that I will have more time for myself now that I own my business. That's not so true. When I started my business, obviously, I was working 14 to 16 hours a day, and that's certainly the type of commitment you should have when you decide on one. And I think another consideration, practical consideration, is whether you have a passion for your business. I've always wanted to be an attorney. I can't imagine doing anything else. My mother always said that I'm good at everything I do, but I don't think so. I think law is the only area for me. I can't imagine doing anything else. That's definitely passion and devoting the time. And obviously, one of the considerations is income. When you are an employee for a business, you want to consider whether you can double your income in the next 2 to 3 years practically, because a lot of business startups and in the Small Business Administration surveys, 80% of business fail in the first year, and that's certainly not a surprise. And obviously, a lot of business startup with not a lot of operating income, and that's really one of the most or primary cause of business failure. So I think that's one of the considerations, whether you want to start a small business.
Sure, and then I guess you'd also have to think, well, what would happen if I don't plan on failing, but if I would fail, am I going to be able to get back into the workforce then? Is there going to be a job for me when I need to get back in?
Exactly, and that could be a double-edged sword. And sometimes when you start a business, there's no going back. But a lot of this SBA recommends that if you are thinking of starting a business, you might want to have a 9-month income cushion, primarily because for small businesses, for example, the income that they're going to get from this business is primarily going to be out-of-pocket expenses. So you got to be ready for out-of-pocket expenses, getting some loans. So we'll talk about funding later. hiring professionals to set you up, marketing, accounting, attorneys, all that good stuff. When you're growing, you're going to need it. And that's one of the primary considerations on setting up a business.
Not that it's easy for anyone to step out and do this on their own and set up their own small business, but do you think it was easier for someone like you who was a professional? You were an attorney, now you're just setting up your own law practice, which I'm assuming at the beginning started with just you.
Right.
As opposed to someone who, I want to quit my job in radio because I've always wanted to own a food truck.
Yeah, that's definitely harder. I mean, at least in my arena, it's a lot easier because it's something I already do. I've worked for a big law firm in the past and obviously have experience in litigation matters, and not just litigation matters, but in management matters in law firms. So that's definitely an easy consideration for me to start my own practice. But for a lot of people that are going into something new, that is definitely something, a lot of failures of business are primarily because there's not a lot of research that has been done. You want to do a research on whether you actually have a marketable product or services. Yeah. Funding is something that you want to think about. Can you fund your inventory and services? Do you have the collateral? And we'll talk about funding in more detail later, but do you have the collateral to put up to get a funding from the bank or the SBA or even a family loan? Those are the considerations you want to get. And in fact, I have a client come into me last week and say, can I start a landscaping business? And I said, you can, but definitely you want to consider in Nevada, there's a lot of landscaping services in town, from small mom and pop landscaping services to the big boys that you're competing with. And he said he wants to specialize in providing services to HOAs. And I said, most HOAs probably already have landscaping services. So those are the market research you want to do. A lot of business do a business plan. Some small businesses don't think that business plan apply to them. That may be true, but I think those are some of the plans that you want to do because those business plans are required anyway when you apply for funding.
Seems like a lot of people, when they decide I'm going to start my own business, restaurants always pop into mind, or bars. I have a great idea for a restaurant and bar, even though I've been an accountant my whole life and don't have any experience with food management whatsoever. But I like food, and I like to go to a bar, and I've just got a concept, so I'm sure I'll be successful.
Oh, restaurants is one of the toughest business to break into, especially because we have a restaurant in every corner. And to me, I'm not really obviously a restaurant business owner, but definitely you got to have something unique theme-wise or food-wise to make your business successful. But that's definitely, when you start a business, you want to make sure that you match your talent and capability to the business you're doing into. And the concept, I think, this naive concept that the customers will come to you, just put it in there and see if they come. And that's getting harder and harder, obviously, with the competition, not only in brick and mortar businesses, but also online. There's a lot of competition online. If you type in restaurants.com, there's a lot of restaurants that pop up. I mean, how many Indian foods are out there?
Right.
Just on the Flamingo, there's probably 3 or 4 Indian restaurants in there, and I don't even know which one to choose when I want to go to Indian restaurants. I mean, those are the considerations I want to do. And later on, we'll talk about franchises, and maybe that's something that somebody who is thinking about restaurant business may want to think about. And primarily when I did the business issues talk last week, I had a lot of off-air questions on franchises, and that's why I want to talk about that in more detail later. Mm-hmm.
Can I run a business from my home? Does it depend on what it is? Or am I allowed to just decide, since I'm going to be starting this new business small and it's going to just start with me, why don't I just run it from my house?
Well, a lot of businesses actually are run from the house. A lot of them probably should not be run from the house because there's a lot of zoning restrictions that you want to consider. And people think that, well, I'm small enough, they're not gonna notice, and they will. At some point in time, they will when you are, if it's just a hairdressing business where your clients come to your house, you're probably going to get away with it. But when you start selling products, for example, shipping products, depending on what kind of products it is, you want to make sure there's a lot of information out there in the internet and municipalities and local zoning websites, what kind of business you can run. So you want to make sure when you do a home business, it's something that you are actually zoned to do. Otherwise, you will get a penalty.
Don't set up an auto mechanic shop in my garage.
Exactly. I actually have a neighbor from a long time ago. They were doing appliance repairs, and they should not be doing that. But, people get away with it. But that's something that is a consideration when you do zoning and when you do businesses.
So, Irene, I don't so much want to start a small business, but I've got a great idea for an invention, for a product that the world can't live without. I'm surprised you've lived without it this long, but now it's in my head and I need to get it to the marketplace.
You know, people have inventions all the time, and good for them. It certainly shows creativity from people. But, you know, when you have an invention or an idea, the worst thing to do is start telling people what your idea is, especially if you think it's a marketable idea. Well, I'll tell my Aunt Joanne about this product or an idea and see if it goes. And I think you want to talk to an attorney if that's a viable, marketable product.
All right, we will be back with Airene Williamson discussing starting up a small business right after we check in with Mitch Kelly in the KDON 1 Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center.
This report at 9:15 brought to you by In-N-Out Burger. Stop by today for your made-to-order double-double. 2 100% pure beef patties, 2 slices of real American cheese, hand-leaf lettuce, fine-ripened tomatoes, all on an old-fashioned sponge dough bun. That's what a hamburger's all about. Just one freeway accident remains. One vehicle on the ramp to go from 95 south to 15 south. Top of the ramp and off on the right shoulder. No delays. As we usually see in the mid-morning, the problems switch to the surface streets. The newest injury accidents in the northwest at Ann and Rainbow with Las Vegas Fire on scene. Also one in the southwest, Grand Canyon south of Hacienda. Injury accident also on the northbound airport connector as you approach the tunnel. South end of town, Bermuda north of St. Rose Parkway. Leftover crashes east side, Sahara west of Nellis. West side, Lake Mead at Decatur. Buffalo at Spring Mountain, Charleston at Rancho. Next updates at 9:30, and from the KDON 1 Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center, I'm Mitch Kelly on News Talk 720 KDWN.
Real estate is all we do. We can and will sell your house no matter how much you owe, and put cash in your pocket. Call me today at 255-1145. Capiche? That's Gavish.
Are you taking pills for male enhancement? How much are you paying per pill? $18? More? If you're paying $18 per pill, you're getting taken to the cleaners. What if I said we had one for less than $2 per pill? Guaranteed to deliver real results. Skeptical? Before you pay even a penny per pill, to prove it works, we'll send you a full-size supply of Bravado absolutely risk-free. Call this toll-free number now, 1-800-955-9952. Bravado is one of the safest male enhancement pills available because each capsule contains natural ingredients that will safely increase your libido fast. It'll boost your confidence in the bedroom and even give your partner a more satisfying experience. To get a full-size supply of Bravado absolutely risk-free, call now, 1-800-955-9952. Stop paying for expensive male enhancement pills. Pick up the phone and get a full-size supply of Bravado risk-free. Call 1-800-955-9952. That's a 30-day risk-free trial at 1-800-955-9952.
Listen to The John Brislin Show for the best in late-night political talk Saturday nights from 11 p.m. to 12 midnight. John Brislin hits hard and tells it like it is. The only way to turn the double talk into straight talk. Call in Saturday nights from 11 p.m. to midnight with John Brislin live.
Now back to KDWN's Legal Hour. Have a legal question? Call now. 257-KDWN. That's 257-5396.
And welcome back to the KDON Legal Hour with attorney Airene Williamson from the Williamson Law Office. We're discussing starting your own small business, what you need to get into, what are all the steps you need to take, and if it's even a good idea for you. So we've talked a little bit about funding and about how it does take capital to get a small business started. Are there ways to get that money, borrow money, if you don't have money laying around?
Certainly. I mean, a lot of businesses actually, it depends on the business. A lot of businesses actually survive coming up with a $5,000 startup cost, depending on what it is. If it's just a hairdresser business, then you can probably get away with $5,000 buying your tools, buying your spot, probably a lease or a sublease on a space. But when it comes to providing big services or big products, when you're ordering inventory from somewhere else, you probably want to do some financing or think about your financing. And one of the first steps that I've emphasized in the past is probably thinking about writing a business plan, primarily because a lot of institutions, and one of the things that your avenue for a loan is bank and SBA, they will definitely require a business plan. But on a smaller scale, before I get to the banking, is the owner financing. Obviously, as a lot of small business owners come up with their out-of-pocket expense. And I've emphasized before the importance of separating. If you're an LLC or a corporation, you want to separate that from your personal funds. There's ways to lend money to your business from your personal Just make sure your accountant actually track it. And actually, when you do lend to your business, you can charge interest just like any other loan. So you can pay yourself back with some interest. So that's an owner financing. Another financing is personal loans from your friends and family. That's common. And that's also a common hub for disputes is financing from friends and family. Obviously, even if they're friends and family, they're going to want to have something in writing just to assure that they're going to get that money back. And sometimes either that's in the form of a promissory note or a personal guarantee, or some of them I've even seen collateralizing their house to their family, even though the house has a lien on it and a mortgage. So I'm not sure how that works, but they do it, and the family or friend would record the promissory note on the property, which they shouldn't be doing anyway. But that happens, and when you do that, just make sure that the agreement is treated like a business, and because you don't want to break any relationship on personal financing and personal loans such as that. The most common is obviously banks and the SBA. Now, the problem with banks, obviously, is it's going to be a rigorous process for somebody to get a banking loan. I think a lot of people probably think that, there's some minorities, there are probably some programs for minorities. The problem with that is they actually have the same criteria as any other person applying for a loan. They're going to want your operating statements. They're going to want your financial statements. They're going to want your tax returns, collateral, probably require that you bank with them first anyway before you lend or before you borrow money from that particular bank. The SBA, their Small Business Administration, has stopped granting or stopped lending loans directly to owners or small business owners. What they do now is they work with banks and they guarantee that loan. So you have to apply to both institutions, the SBA, and you want to make sure your financial statements also qualify for the requirements of the banks. Once that qualifies, the SBA can guarantee that loan. So those are the different areas of financing you want to think about, definitely available. Another one is home equity loans. Like I've talked about home equity loans, a lot of people use the house as their collateral. Just make sure that you'll be able to pay that back, or the loan will secure a deed of trust on your house, and that will be taken. And another question that I always get when people start a business is, can they get a government grant? And I say no. Primarily, it's not really for profit businesses. It's usually for nonprofit. By the way, if any of our listeners are thinking about starting a nonprofit business, that is definitely, actually, in my experience, a lot harder and a lot more rigorous document-wise, licensing-wise, than a regular corporation or LLC. So you might want to make sure you obtain an accountant, professional services, or an attorney, because there's definitely, especially if it's a nonprofit organization that is, you want to qualify as a 501c3, which means you can get donations and get that deductible. There's definitely rigorous IRS requirements for that. Anyway, segue. So government grants only available for nonprofit. Money through investors is another one. And this is probably the riskiest source of funding for a lot of small business is the investors. There's different investors. We call them venture capitalists. We call them angels, whatever you call them. Basically, what they do is they're as rigorous as a bank as well. They will look at your financial statements, but they're a little more invasive than a bank. But obviously, if you don't have a choice, if you think your idea is so great that investors will come to you, you got to be prepared that that particular venture capitalist will enter into some agreement with you, wherein they can be a part owner of the business, or they will put a management team on your business. So if you're the type that, that you're okay with, comfortable with somebody else running your business, that's definitely an avenue. And
that seems kind of counterintuitive, though. I left working for someone else because I want to run my own business. So now I'm going to let investors come in and run my business for me and have other people still making the decisions.
Oh, definitely. And that's actually a part or one of the characteristics of a franchise, which we'll discuss later. But venture capitalists, especially for tech companies, these recent tech companies, I have a Facebook idea, or I have a Twitter idea that I want to present to a venture capitalist or an angel investor. What they don't know is that these angel investors, they do have the funding for it. They will look at your idea and see how profitable it is. But the problem is they will have an agreement with you. Well, they will put a management team in place to make sure that you're running it the way they want to, and that you are, if you are thinking of getting a loan from somewhere else, that your leverage ratio is up to their qualifications. And that's the same deal with the franchise, which I'll talk about later. But definitely, if you're the kind that are comfortable with investors coming in, owning a part of your business, that's definitely an avenue. And again, I've mentioned about the minority and women-owned business loans. They encourage it with the SBA, but really the fact of the matter is they are on the same requirements as a regular business owner looking for a loan.
Yeah, I saw an article yesterday that Nevada is one of the top states for female-owned businesses and female-owned startup businesses.
Right. And that's actually Small Business Administration helps just the processing. I'm not talking about qualification because everybody's in kind of the same page as far as qualification, but they do have the Small Business Administration here in Nevada provides certain help to business owners as far as qualifying. And actually, we do have in public arena or public contracting, they also have help for business owners when it comes to minority.
Now, a lot of times you hear when a business is fully licensed and bonded. What does that mean? What is bonding? Do I need to be bonded if I'm starting a business?
A lot of business in town are actually contractors. So that's definitely a bonding issue is in place. So if you're a contractor, a landscaper, or doing some kind of a construction where a license is involved, a bonding is involved, you will definitely need to be bonded. You definitely need to be licensed. And bonding is just it's not a liability insurance, but it's a type of insurance wherein you purchase a bond and that particular bonding company will be liable for if you fail to complete, for example, a contract agreement and your business go bust. So the other party will sue. They can't sue you because you're gone out of business. So they will go after your bond or license. And you got to be careful not to lose that bond or license, because if you do on a litigation or some kind of a demand action, then you will have a hard time getting a bond later on. But there's definitely different ways of bonding. There's performance bond where they will ensure that you're performing according to contract. There's a payment bond where it guarantees that you're paying your subcontractors, so the owners are not responsible for it. That's the idea of a bond.
So it sounds to me like what I am learning from you through all this isn't something you just need to do lightly if you're going to start a business. Just decide, well, Friday, I'll work the rest of this week, but Friday I'm done, and then Monday I'm starting my new business. You really need to think this out, have a plan in action, ready to go for the long term.
Well, it's for some people it works to fly by and just think about it and start a business on Monday. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but it definitely pays off to plan something a more elaborate plan, especially if it's a business that requires some inventory and equipment, like the landscaping person that I've mentioned. I don't think they've thought about the cost of equipment, thought about the cost of licensing and bonding, and you go into Nevada State Contractors Board, getting approved. Getting the background check approved by the Nevada State Contractors Board. Definitely did not even consider that. So those are the considerations that have to come in play.
Got to have a truck to haul your equipment around.
Right.
Equipment's going to break. Got to repair it.
Right. And those are costs that are coming out. And like I said before, the Small Business Administration survey, 80% of business fail in the first year, either fail or feel a loss in the first year, which is not uncommon. You just have to be ready for it, because a lot of costs are coming out on the first year, either cost of your licensing, permits, equipment, inventory, setting up everything, leases. Those are the kind of considerations you want to think about when you're starting a business.
So should you sit down with an attorney like yourself, like your landscaper client is doing, to hash out all of this before you start investing your own money or other people's money into something that you haven't really thought out completely?
Exactly. And not only an attorney like myself, but also perhaps an accountant that can help. Basically, because if you are thinking of a loan, then you're going to want to get your financials arranged, get your tax returns arranged, because that's going to determine whether or not you get a loan in the first place to get your business going.
And I'm sure those are the first two things people don't think of. I need an attorney and an accountant. There's so much cost going out of the business in the first year that perhaps hiring an attorney or hiring an accountant or other professionals in the business is not the first consideration that comes to mind. But the problem is it does save them in the long run, as far as, compliance and permits and licenses, which they always, most of the time they get wrong and they have to repeat it again. All right, we will be back with Airene Williamson talking about starting up small businesses. We're going to discuss franchising when we get back. 257-5396 if you have a question or comment for Airene. Right now we'll check in with news, traffic, and weather on News Talk 720 KDWN.
If you're looking for the best all-you-can-eat buffet in town for only $1.99, come to Big Ed's Chow House. If you're looking for juicy burgers, come to Big Ed's Chow House. If you're looking for tender brisket and succulent ribs, come to Big Ed's Chow House. But if you're looking for Big Ed, don't come to Big Ed's Chow House. Big Ed passed away last week at the age of 47, leaving his wife and 3 children, struck down in his prime by the same disease that got his father. So he won't be around to take care of his family. And the sad part is it all could have been detected early with a simple test, but Big Ed didn't get it.
Have you gotten the medical tests you need? For a list of tests every man should have, go to ahrq.gov. Once again, that's ahrq.gov. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
50,000 watts of news and talk. News Talk 720 KDWN, Las Vegas, the dawn of today's talk radio.
AP Update. I'm Rita Foley. We have more information now about the explosives used in the Boston Marathon bombing. Our national security correspondent Sagar Magani is live with us. Sagar, what can you tell us?
Rita, a person briefed on the Boston investigation says the explosives were in 6-liter pressure cookers packed with shards of metal, nails, and ball bearings, and then placed in black duffel bags. While the person says law enforcement officials do have some of the bomb components, they do not yet know what was used to set off the explosives, Rita.
Now, President Obama is calling the bombings an act of terrorism this morning, but investigators do not yet know who is behind these bombings. 3 people were killed, more than 170 wounded. At Massachusetts General Hospital, the chief of emergency services said, "This is something I've never seen in my 25 years here. This is what we expect from war." I'm Rita Foley.
9:32 in the Cato on One Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center with an update brought to you by the Four Queens Hotel and Casino. Valley freeways are quiet, no problems or slowdowns to report. Injury accidents, though, on the surface streets in the northwest at Ann and Rainbow. New one on the west side, Town Center at Alta. Staying on the west side, Lake Mead at Decatur, Buffalo at Spring Mountain, Charleston at Rancho. In the southwest, Grand Canyon south of Hacienda, south end of town, Bermuda north of St. Rose Parkway. Also one finishing up at the northbound airport connector as you approach the tunnel. And on the east side, Sahara west of Nellis. KDWN weather, a 20% chance of a shower and breezy conditions this afternoon with a high only reaching 64. Right now it's 57 degrees in Las Vegas, and more of the Cato on Legal Hour with attorney Airene Williamson's coming up. From the Cato on One Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center, Mitch Kelly on News Talk 720 KDWN.
Take a trip back in time with some of the greatest music ever written. Canyon Club inside the Four Queens presents the Jay Bolin Acoustic Retro Rock Show, featuring a selection of hits from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Now playing at the Four Queens Hotel and Casino.
If your home is underwater, the question is, can you still refinance at today's low interest rates? Hi, I'm Wesley Hoagland, president of Westland Financial. And the answer may be yes. Recently, the government announced new change to their HARP program that may allow you to refinance even if your house is upside down with no appraisal needed. So if you owe $400,000 on your mortgage, but your house only worth $200,000, we may still be able to help you. Or if your interest rate's higher than 4%, you've got to give us a call today, and we can do it with no closing costs. That's right, nothing's rolled into your loan. Westland Financial has helped thousands of people just like you. All it takes is a 5-minute phone call to see if you qualify. And by the way, if you have an FHA or VA loan that's underwater, we can probably refinance you with no appraisal needed as well. So if you owe more than your house is worth, you need to call Westland Financial to see if you qualify. Give us a call at 888-945-4105. That's 888-945-4105. Call us at 888-945-4105.
Westland Financial Corp. is licensed by the Division of Mortgage Lending and holds a mortgage banker's license number 2450. NMLS number 3304. Not all loans apply. Equal housing lender.
Guns. Rocky Mountain Gun Shows. Pistols, rifles, knives, and camo, every single type of ammo gun show.
The Rocky Mountain Gun Show is back on April 20th and 21st at the South Point Casino. Tons of every type of ammunition, $89 CCW permit classes. Plus, they're giving away 5 guns and 5,000 rounds of ammo. Info and discount coupons at RockyMountainGunShows.com.
Rocky Mountain Gun Shows.
One Nevada Credit Union.
Not all checking accounts are created equal. With One Checking Rewards from One Nevada Credit Union, you get free mobile check deposit, 43,000 free ATMs, and you'll earn double cash back for a limited time. Open your account today at onenevada.org or call 457-1000. One Nevada Credit Union, federally insured by the NCUA Equal Opportunity Lender.
Now back to KDWN's Legal Hour. Have a legal question? Call now. 257-KDWN. That's 257-5396.
KDWN News Time 9:35. Welcome back to the Tuesday KDWN Legal Hour with attorney Airene Williamson from the Williamson Law Office. Irene's number at work, 823-3311, or you can reach her by email at info@wlawoffice.com. Franchising. What is it?
Franchising is basically just one of the methods to distribute products and services. There's 2 parties to it. We have the franchisor, who basically just lends his trademark, like, for example, McDonald's, or trade name, and you come up with a business system. And then you have the franchisee, who pays for the royalty and the initial fees for the right to use that trademark. And I want to discuss this today because I did get a lot of calls regarding how can I set up a franchise, or is this franchise a good idea for me? And my answer is franchise is actually harder to consider than just starting up. Primarily because franchise, or at least 90% of it, has what is called the business format franchise. A business format franchise, basically a franchisor kind of controls all your business plans. They will control your marketing plan. They will control your supplies. They will control your operations of your business. They will control how you buy your supplies. So McDonald's, for example, or Subway, or In-N-Out, those are the kind of franchise.
Yeah, you're not just running down to Costco and buying your supplies there. You have to get them from the franchisor.
Exactly. And in fact, when you do a franchise, and I always want to make sure that the franchise agreement is everything as it's supposed to be, and that's one of the most difficult thing about franchise, but they give you a format on how to run your business, and they have, like, it's a funny thing, it's like a manual of situations that you will face as a manager. Or you're basically a manager for a franchise. Mm-hmm. You're not owning your own business, but for some people it works, for some people it doesn't. On that plan that I'm talking about, or a book, they actually have scenarios on what you should be doing in case you're faced with particular management decisions. That's a business format for a franchise, and there's pros and cons to it. Obviously, at least if you are new in the business and you want to be in the restaurant industry, that's probably a good idea. If you want to run like an Olive Garden kind of type of deal, they already have the step-by-step procedure on how to run it. They have the management to run it. Obviously, there's the popularity of the name that's already helping you out when you start out and open that Olive Garden that you have. And the idea, theoretically, it provides a bigger expansion, for example, rather than starting up a business.
Just out of curiosity, I looked up franchise. I forget what franchise it was, just to see what all goes into it. A lot of these franchises require a lot of money up front,
yes,
and a lot of experience that you have to show you already have.
I think a lot of people don't know this. Definitely, there's a lot of requirements that comes to it. I think there's a website called, if you're starting a franchise, obviously you're going to look at what kind of franchise works for you, for your talent, for your capabilities. Either it's a restaurant or a fast food, and even service-oriented franchise like printing companies, FedEx, for example, or what have you, or accountant, H&R Block, TurboTax. Those are the kind of franchise that are available. But basically, you're buying into their business model. And if you are buying into their business model, you better do exactly what they say, primarily because on their end, they're protecting their trademark, they're protecting their quality of products and services. So they do have a lot of requirements. And a lot of it is, franchisors make money from the initial fees that you have to pay, which can range from as small as $20,000 to $1 million. If you're thinking of a McDonald's kind of deal or a 7-Eleven kind of deal, that's definitely up on that range in the $1 million initial fee setup. And then they also have a royalty wherein they're getting a periodic payments on the profits that you're making. So it's a lot of startup. And for example, an Olive Garden kind of deal, they will require experience, years of experience. If you're thinking if this is the right franchise for you, well, you want to think, what is my experience? Because they're going to definitely want to know that you have a restaurant management experience first before you enter into a franchise agreement. Otherwise, they won't even consider you. You have to have your assets, in excess of your liabilities for so much. Either you have, I know McDonald's or 7-Eleven require that you at least have a $2 million asset to get into the franchise business. But, there are other smaller franchises. I know of an internet site. I think it's a nonprofit internet site. It's www.franchise.org, where you can find all the list of franchise available by the amount of value. You can look them by price range from $25,000 to $100,000. That's definitely a good place to start.
So am I going to be responsible as a franchisee, say for something like a McDonald's or something where I'm going to need a standalone building? Do I need to buy the land? Do I need to pay to have the building built to their specs? Is that more investment for me? Or am I more or less leasing from the franchisor, or does it depend on what business you're going into?
It depends on what business you're going into. But when it comes to fast foods, which is a lot of people are thinking of going to fast foods because that's, popular. The operating cost and the leasing, that's your burden. Basically, the only thing that McDonald's control, they have a lot of control, but one of the things they control is the location and make sure that you're not within certain miles of another franchise McDonald's.
Right, which I guess is the plus of a franchise, because you're not going to be competing with someone else. Exactly.
And that's one of the considerations you want to think about if you're thinking about a franchise is look at your franchise agreement. And that's more convoluted than people think. And I'll talk about that in a bit. But, that's definitely... That's not part of the package of the royalty. If people think that that's part of the package, they're wrong. That's addition to your operating cost, leasing, supplies. That's part and parcel from the package of the initial fees.
I'd imagine that franchises like that, like a McDonald's or a 7-Eleven, though, are probably more successful than other franchises, which is why they cost more. And
exactly.
Because you are most likely going to get a return at some point on your investment.
That's the idea. If you have a Starbucks, people like coffee, so that the idea is you gain a lot of rapid expansion from purchasing that Starbucks, and that's why it's cost so much. Obviously, not a lot of people can afford it. I can't afford a Starbucks franchise at this time.
I can't afford a Starbucks coffee, much less a franchise.
That's what I'm saying. I just drink coffee from a percolator because I don't like buying $3 coffee a day. But definitely, that's a lot of consideration when you are thinking about franchise. I had a question last week from a client, said, what kind of factors do I need to look at when I'm doing a franchise? And obviously, number one is your experience. And not only is that a consideration, but it's also mandatory for a lot of businesses, as we've talked about. Complete understanding of the business, because they're going to require that. What are the hours or the commitments when you get into a franchise? Or think about talking to other franchisees who have the same franchise business. I know a lot of people who are in a fast food franchise are very upset or not really happy with the franchise because the franchisor controls all of your operations, on even your profit intake. And that's something that they should have considered in the first place, because that's going to happen, and they're going to require you to have so much profits, so much leverage, and if you're not doing well, that's a breach of a franchise agreement. So that's certainly something you want to think about. Franchise agreement is, I've seen a franchise agreement that runs to 100 pages, just to make sure you got all the operations just right, according to like McDonald's standards, for example.
How am I going to make any money in a franchise? So far, all it seems like is money is going out, that I'm not ever making any money at this.
Oh, that seems to be the case for every business. It looks like, money is going out, nothing's coming in. But, the idea of a franchise is that you got this brand that's already proven, tested. And, for example, McDonald's, I mean, who doesn't buy McDonald's? Mm-hmm. The idea is you get the recognition that you want. Not a lot of marketing is needed, although you have to pay for some marketing, but it's already there. The brand is there for you. That's why a lot of people want that as a security, and all the procedures, all the management systems are already in place. all the suppliers are already built for you, ready to deliver products or inventory however you want it. And that's the kind of setup that a franchise does.
So once they get their cut, whatever percentage they're taking, I pay all my operating expenses.
Right.
Then whatever's left is mine.
Then whatever's left is yours after you paid your employees, after you paid your suppliers, after you paid your license, your lease, and all that good stuff. But the idea is, again, I mean, it's not, when you set up a business, the idea is not speed, but to put in place all the systems that are proven, tested, not even just franchise, but also a startup business. Make sure that you are able to take that loss on the first year, because that's, usually that's what happens in the business is you incur a loss in the first year, and hopefully you make a profit in the next couple of years.
Should you be leery of some newer franchises, maybe something that's coming up and you think, well, there aren't any of those here in the Valley yet, maybe, yes. And that doesn't cost as much, so maybe I should get into McDougal's because their hamburgers are going to be good.
Yeah, and in fact, the federal government recognizes there's a lot of scams as far as franchising this particular printing services. Nobody's heard of it, but they're selling it. But we do have an FTC, Federal Trade Commission, laws that require all franchisors in a federal level and also on a state level. We have California. Nevada doesn't have one. But our federal law does provide for it, is to make a complete disclosure of the business, for example. And that includes, if they filed for bankruptcy in the past, if they have a litigation in the past, their kind of profit, and the franchisees in the area.
All right, we will be back with Airene Williamson from the Williamson Law Office right after we check in with Mitch Kelly in the KDON 1 Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center.
At 9:46, the update brought to you by 99 Cents Only Stores. Spring is here, and 99 Cents Only Stores has what you need to update the look of your garden. Add a pop of color with colorful windsocks, ceramic pots, and live blooming plants for 99.99 cents each. Save more. Shop 99 Cents Only Stores first for spring garden essentials. All the accidents are on the surface streets, including an injury crash in the northwest at Ann and Rainbow, West Side Rex Charleston at Rainbow, Town Center at Alta, Southwest Grand Canyon south of Hacienda, new on East Side Maryland Parkway just south of Sahara, also one Sahara west of Nellis at Lamont, and one in the northbound airport connector tunnel as well. Your next update at 10 o'clock, and from the KDON 1 Nevada Credit Union Traffic Center, it's Mitch Kelly, News Talk 720, KDWN.
The answer to our nation's economy lies in our rural areas. All the building blocks that we need to bring our nation back are in those rural areas. Tune in to Rural Nevada Today every Saturday morning from 6 to 7 and learn why. Listen to our show anytime by going to our website, ruralnevadatoday.com.
Hi, everybody. Ray Lucia here. We invite Lynn Rowe, certified financial planner, to come on the show and remind people just how critical long-term care insurance can be. Most standard insurance policies don't provide protection for long-term care, yet studies show that more than 40% of men and nearly 3/4 of women today will need some form of long-term care. Those costs could run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I want you to visit Lynn Rowe's website, iwantmyltc.com. That's LTC as in long-term care. iwantmyltc.com. Lynn will help you with a quote and send you a free consumer guide published by the American Association for Long-Term Care Insurance. You'll learn the importance of planning for your long-term care or your spouse's, and you can review a long-term care checklist and learn about savings you may qualify for if you're currently in good health. Go to iwantmyltc.com or call Lynn Rowe personally for a complimentary consultation, 800-644-1128. That's 800-644-1128.
Are you tired of fighting with your water, dry skin and hair, dingy laundry, unpleasant tastes and odors, stained sinks and fixtures? Well, now is the time to do something about your water. Hi, Alan Stock here, and I wanted to make sure I had the best water system available, so I called Connecticut over 13 years ago. My clothes are brighter, I see no more hard water stains, and the water is the best I've ever tasted. As a matter of fact, people who visit our home always ask for another glass of that delicious water. And the amazing thing is, we haven't had any service calls to fix our system. Now, the experts at Connecticut Water Systems really know their stuff and can customize a solution that's right for your home and your family. Now, the Connecticut Water Systems are completely different. They require no electricity, there are no customer adjustments, and they don't use a ton of salt. Connecticut Water Systems also features the longest manufacturer's warranty, and it's designed to last 30 years plus. Your local independent authorized Connecticut dealer wants to make it as easy as possible for you to try clean conditioned water in your home by offering a free trial. Go to kwater.com for more details on their free in-home trial. That's the letter letter K and the word water. KWater.com and get your trial started today.
Sponsored by Jack in the Box. Right now you can get 2 Junior Jacks for only $2 plus tax. This deal's only available at participating Las Vegas locations for a limited time, so hurry into Jack in the Box today and get it while it lasts.
Now back to KDWN's Legal Hour. Have a legal question? Call now. 257-KDWN. That's 257-5396.
KDWN News Time 9:49. About 10 minutes left in the program this morning with attorney Airene Williamson from the Williamson Law Office. 257-5396. If you have any comments or questions for Airene, we're discussing franchising, which sounds like so much fun from what you've said so far.
Well, it's so much fun, but, it works for a lot of people.
Sure.
It does work if you have the assets for it or the experience to qualify for a lot of it. Obviously, one of the drawbacks of a franchise is if you do not like the control, this is probably not the right one for you. If you think that you're going to be your own boss in a franchise situation, you're more likely going to act like a manager of a location of a particular franchise rather than a business owner who can, do whatever you want. They definitely have a rigorous requirement, and it's definitely a convoluted application packet with a convoluted franchise agreement. Just closing on that franchise topic, so you might want to make sure that your finances are in order. Your franchise agreement is according to something you can live by, because they will require that. Otherwise, you will be in breach of that franchise agreement. And good luck with that. So that's the franchise for you. Right.
All right. What about I've set up my business, say I did it years ago, and it's growing and it's prospering and we're doing good. Are there changing regulatory and legal issues that I'm going to be faced with as an established business?
Definitely. And especially this last year, and a lot of changes are coming into this year. One of them is the job creation changes. I know we have a job bill from President Obama on payroll tax cuts last year in 2012, but this year that's come and gone. That's expired. And so we're going to see some increase in taxes, increase in Social Security taxes and payroll taxes. So you want to be aware of that. Another thing is worker classification. The IRS is now cracking down on employers, I should say, as far as classifying your employees. If you think you can get away with paying taxes by putting them on 1099 as an independent contractor, they're going to look at that carefully and make sure that the requirements of an independent contractor or factors for an independent contractor are actually followed. Like if you have total control of a person on your business, it's most likely they're going to be an employee, not an independent contractor. So that's one change. Another change is the deficit reduction. Obviously, the government right now has a spending problem. So they're going to come up with some taxes that's coming in 2013, and we're going to feel it. In fact, one of the changes that I'm looking forward to is the unemployment tax increase. My unemployment tax just for my business just increased from 1.2 to 2.9%. I'm really happy with that. I was screaming at my accountant why that's happening. He said, well, that's just the unemployment tax. It's increasing, and there's not much you can do about it. So that's one of the areas of changes.
But I think the sad thing that a lot of people don't realize, so say you don't like that, so what you do is you just start raising your hourly rate by $50 an hour. So now you're paying the increased tax, but really your clients are paying it. But people don't realize that it's not necessarily always the business that's paying these increases. It's you as the consumer that are going to end up paying them. Right.
I mean, a lot of businesses do pass it on to clients, but in the competitive market, you probably, sometimes you can't pass it to the consumer. So, the business will end up taking the brunt of it. And I think another change that I've seen is the Obamacare, obviously, which I had a 2-part segment on. Will definitely affect how a business is taxed. If you have 50 employees and above or less than 50 employees, there's definitely considerations on tax increase and maybe tax credits for somebody who is providing health care but have less than 50 employees. So got to talk to an accountant on that and see what's going on. Another change, which I'll talk about next week, is immigration reform. I was thinking about talking about evictions and legal disputes next week, but this is more exciting is the immigration change. We'll talk about it in more detail. But immigration change, I feel like the government is schizophrenic on this. On one hand, they have an immigration reform to allow for citizenship of illegal immigrants. But on the other hand, they're also cracking down on employees who are employing illegal aliens. And definitely getting stricter on I-9 verification forms. So if you're a small business, you want to make sure that your I-9 verification forms, a lot of people ignore it because it's just the paperwork and the start of the employee's term. But they're cracking down on that. There definitely are, because I'm getting a lot of calls on that. Make sure that those are the record-keeping procedure for I-9s are followed and the ID procedures are followed. So that's an immigration change. I've seen so far as security and privacy change online is there's a Nevada revised statute that was just passed. I think it was 2 years ago or a year ago, wherein if you are an employer or a business owner who is holding private information of customers and clients, that includes their address, their social security number, all that private stuff, you have the duty to keep it confidential, and you have to put requirements in place or an encryption in place that is up to the standard of the Nevada revised statute, Nevada law, that qualifies for that. Otherwise, if it's breached, if somebody takes it, steals the information, and use it either for identity theft purposes, you might be liable for it. So now that's an additional cost to the business.
It sounds like even if you get your business up and running and it becomes successful, it just doesn't ever get on cruise control. You always have to be watching it.
Yes, definitely. It seems like that's part of the growing pain. I guess that's a good thing when you're growing. One of the characteristics of becoming a business owner is just facing those challenges head on and making a decision right on the spot and making sure that your business can cover those costs, because there are costs coming in 2013 from the 2012 changes. Another thing that I want to talk about is the Dodd-Frank changes. Dodd-Frank is just a law regarding bank compliance. Mm-hmm. And it has become so strict that it actually became so hard for business owners to get a credit from the banks. So that's another thing they have to consider is if I can't get a loan from a bank, I better make sure that I have another source of funding, either from my own funding or from somewhere else, because that might not be coming. So that's another change that they have to think about. Again, W-2 form changes. If you are a business owner with more than 50 or 200 employees, definitely changes in W-2 because of the Obamacare. And we have definitely a business owner has a lot of burden. And one of the things that contribute to the failure of the business is trying to be everything. When you start out, you're the marketer, you're the accountant, you're the attorney. You try to be everything, but the fact is you want to be able to get the advice of those professionals, because what you want to focus about is your bottom line, not all these administrative stuff. And I've learned that throughout my business. I can't be everything. I can't be an accountant, even though I have a training in accounting. I want somebody to do that instead of me spending the time to do that.
Right, because you can spend the time focusing on the business part of your business and growing that.
Right. And the marketing as well, that takes a lot of time for a small business owner, marketing. I tried to do it by myself on the first year, but now I have a great marketing company, Diversity Marketing, Michelle Mosey. She's awesome. But I've realized that I can't do it all, and that you do need the help of professionals to get your business going.
Right. And you have a small business in the field where there's more than one or two other attorneys in town that you're competing against.
Yeah, right.
So you got to get your name out there.
You have to. And one of the things that they have to consider, and I might talk about this in some segment later on, is having an online presence. And I don't think I've encountered a business that doesn't have a website at this time. I think almost all startup businesses, whether you're small or big, you have a website business, or I should say a website presence. And with website presence comes a lot of problems again, and a lot of laws that people are not aware of. Basically, that's something that you want to consider about.
And that's something that's relatively new for people who may have started their business, 10, 20 years ago. They didn't have to deal with that. I don't need a website. It's the word of mouth. I'm in the phone book.
Right.
I don't have to have a Twitter account. I don't have to be on Facebook.
So, yeah, definitely a lot of issues for business owners to consider.
All right, immigration next week?
Definitely, probably a 2-part series. That's a big time.
Airene Williamson, if you'd like to reach her at Williamson Law Office, 823-3311, or you can reach her by email at info@wlawoffice.com. Airene, we will see you next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ray Lucia coming your way next on News Talk 720 KDWN.
my name's Corey Cuddyback. You probably don't know me. I work here at the radio station, but I moved to Las Vegas about 4.5 years ago from San Diego, and about 2 months after I got here, I had allergies that were driving me crazy. For 2 years, I would get welts all over my body. My eyes would burn so bad, red, and they felt like they had glass in them, and it was horrible. I used to have to go to clients and say, hey man, I'm not stoned, it's allergies, and they just laugh at me. And all day long, my eyes would water, my skin would itch, my nose would drip. I've been to 12 doctors. I spent probably $5,000 on remedies, and nothing worked. It was just miserable. I went to this health food store. I found this one little bottle. It was called Las Vegas Allergy Mix. 2 days after I started taking these drops, I'm cured. After spending all this money and all this time and all these doctors to try to figure out what was wrong with me, the magic was in this little brown bottle called Las Vegas Allergy Mix. If you've suffered like I've suffered, please go get these little drops. They